What's going on? This is the Deprogram show, and I'm your host, RMJR. And we're going to talk about dealing with life in the inner city, or facing life in the inner city after losing your father. Gonna wait on a few people to chime in. And basically, I'm a young man who lost his father at the age of 15. Anybody who know me know that my father passed actually when I was 14. So I dealt with a lot of issues, went through a lot of trials and tribulations, and I feel like it's only right that I share my trials and tribulations with others so that they can learn from. And also, there's a lot of kids out there that lost their father when they was young, and they facing similar situations that I faced or am facing. Basically, what I want y'all to understand is, at this point in life, I'm 33 years old. I'll be 34 Thursday. I'll be 34 years old Thursday. And I want y'all to understand, it's been 19 years. It's been 19 years since my father passed. And it affected me in many ways. Many things I had to go through that I wouldn't wish on nobody. First of all, I want y'all to understand, when you dealing with your life not having your father. I lost my father at 15. At 15 years old, the first 14 years of my life, me and my father was thick as thieves, as some would say. Everywhere he went, I went. Then when I lost him, it was a severe blow. I mean, to be honest, the reason I act the way I act, most people say I act older, because when I was coming up, I was around older gentlemen. I had older gentlemen around me who helped mold me, as well as being around my father. I was around people who instilled values in me. Luckily, or thankfully, I ain't gonna say luckily, but thankfully, my father instilled in me before he passed to think, pay attention. That was one of my father's main rules to me, was to pay attention. But anyway, I'm finna dive into some of the things I faced when my father passed. My father passed when I was 14. First thing I dealt with was rejection. Dealing with rejection, my father didn't leave me or neglect me, he passed. But I had some resentment because I felt like, to be honest, if he took care of himself, he would be here. I blamed him, just being honest. For a couple of years, I blamed my father. I never shared that with nobody, because I felt like if he would have took care of himself to my standards, that he would have been here. But it was the Lord's will. Also, it was things that I needed to know as a man that my father could have taught me that I missed out on. Again, it was things that I needed to know as a man that my father could have taught me that I didn't end up learning till I was, 26, 27 years old. And I also want y'all to understand, when a kid rebels, especially a kid who doesn't have their father in their life, a male needs a father in their life. If you got any males in your family who lost their father, if you their uncle, if you their cousin, reach out to them, because it's very important that they have a strong male figure in their life, because you got so many things competing for the attention and the mind of their child. Again, I was in the 9th grade when my father passed, a 9th grade dude. So I dealt with a lot of issues as far as not knowing what it meant to really treat a woman the way I needed to treat her, because mind you, when my father died, I really wasn't dating, so I didn't get to go to my father and ask my father, look, what should I do here? What should I do there? So that's one thing that I did miss out on. One thing I did have, I had friends of mine, older friends, because I always gravitate toward older guys. I had older friends who could coach me to some degree. So I leaned on them in that aspect, and I was like, hey man, what I need to do here? Or I looked at some of my friends with their kids and took hold to what they was doing. And believe it or not, my homeboy, Luke Mason, looks like he's watching. I call him Leroy. We call him Pickle. The reason I only have one child, and I believe it or not, the reason I only have one child is because I don't know if he remembers, but he set me down and talked to me about the struggles it is in life when you have multiple kids at a young age. And I thank him for that because he didn't have to sit me down and take me under his wing and show me those things. So if you have any young man in your family, in your community, who's without a father, believe it or not, they are looking up to you in some degree. Another thing, you got people who will lead you the wrong way. And if a kid is not strong, because when I lost my father, that was probably the most detrimental things that ever happened to me, because my father was my best friend. I'm named after my father. My father gave me his name. He taught me a lot of things. Due to the time that I spent with him, I still remember certain things that he taught me. So I did have some degree of time. I had 14 years with my father. So now I've been living longer without my father than I dealt with my father. But another thing I dealt with, approval. When I was a teenager, I didn't have my father in my life so I could go to him for approval. As a man, a young man, I longed for the approval of my father. But due to the will of God, my father wasn't there, so I struggled with that. I was also upset with the Lord because I felt like, why my father's not here? You know what I'm saying? So I never talked about a lot of this stuff that I'm going to share with y'all, but I'm going to share it because I feel like somebody needs to know it. Another thing that I dealt with was a lot of anger. My mother dealt with other guys, and I had a lot of anger because at that time I felt like that wasn't the time that she should have been dealing with other guys. If you have a child, a young man, I want y'all to listen to me. If a young man loses his father, understand, talk to him, see where his mind's at. I didn't want my mother dating anybody else because I felt like that would be like her replacing my father. I'm going to say that again. I didn't want my mother at that time dating no one else because I felt like that would be replacing my father. Believe it or not, there was no way that now I know my mother couldn't replace my father, but that's how I felt at the time. And me being a teenager at that time, I was longing for his love. I was longing for his admiration. So believe it or not, I got into mischievous things with females due to that fact. That's me. I'm getting it to you real. I wasn't the type to do gang banging or nothing like that. But I got into devilment, or I got into things I shouldn't have been getting into because of my father not being there, not saying, hey, look, this ain't what you need to do. I brought women, to be honest, I brought women into my mother's house because my father wasn't there to say, look, this ain't what time it is. Another thing I struggled In high school, in my later years in high school, I struggled with schoolwork. I put more emphasis on going to get a job than I put on my schoolwork because I dealt with a lot of things at that time. When at 15 years old, 14, 15, I felt like without my father being in the household, that I felt like I had to be a man. I put myself in a man's position because I had no man in my household at the time, because the only man that I looked to me, I had uncles, I had older cousins, but the main man that I looked to in my life was my father. If you have any questions, you can ask me a question as I'm talking, but I'm going deep because I want y'all. I'm gonna pour my heart out because I want y'all to hear this. I looked to my father. When my father left, my sister, my little sister, I ain't gonna lie, I struggle with this to this day. I felt like I felt my little sister because I was so worried about me. I'm gonna say that again. I felt like me because I thought I was supposed to be the man of the house when at that time, at 14, 15, I didn't have the capability to manage a household. But I felt like, and I still struggle with this to this day, but I ask God to forgive me because I didn't have no control over it. Some of the things my little sister got into because she was younger than me, I felt like I could have prevented, but really it was just the lack of her having a father, and she got into a lot of trouble, different things of different nature, and that affected me. Not knowing, hey, how do I go talk to her? How do I steer her in the right direction? I tried to do the best I could at that moment, but being honest with you, it affected me. It affected me as far as what my mother went through at the time. She went through a hard period of time. I'm not going to get into her business, but she dealt with a lot of struggles that actually broke us apart, like far as our closeness. And I was dealing with all that weight at a young age, at 15 years old, 15, 16 years old. I remember going to my mother right after my father passed, and I told her, I said, don't worry about me. Focus on you and my little sister. So that was my mind frame. I'm putting myself in a grown man situation. At 15, I felt like that's what I had to do. Not knowing that I wasn't equipped, because I realize now my brain didn't fully develop until I was 24. Anybody who know me know that I act, that people say, I act older than what I am. But one thing I can thank God for, me looking at the situation like I looked at it, it helped me mature faster. It helped me mature a whole lot faster because I felt like I didn't have room for mistakes. I felt like I didn't have room to go and get in trouble with the guys. In my neighborhood. In my neighborhood, it was guys who were stealing cars. It was guys who were selling dope. It was guys who were stealing. It was guys who was even in gangs. At one point, the gang life seemed enticing because, again, my father wasn't there, so I looked into it. To be honest, I studied gangs. I studied gangs for 3 years. I studied them day in, day out, from the music, what they did, why they did, and all that. But one thing that God helped me see, even when I wasn't saved, I was well versed enough to pay attention and see guys who was dying, guys who was losing their life over this neighborhood, that neighborhood, or petty misunderstanding. But again, mind you, all kids don't have the mind frame that I had. I had guys who, and I know guys whose fathers was never there. So even though my father died when I was 14, 15, I felt like to some degree I had an advantage. But I ain't gonna lie, man, I dealt with a lot of anger because my father wasn't there. And it was a point in time, couldn't no man tell me nothing. At the end of the day, once you develop a mindset at 14 and 15 that you gotta be the man of the house, it's hard for a man to tell you anything, because at the end of the day, I looked at it like, look, you ain't in my household. So I can sympathize with young men when they say, bruh, you ain't my daddy. When they tell you ain't my daddy, they saying, I wish my daddy was here. When any young man, any male try to reach out to any young man and they tell you not my daddy when you try to correct them, they're only saying, I wish my father was here. They saying, I wish that you take the time with me to mold me, because, bro, when you ain't got your father, you need help. And as a kid, we don't know how to convey that. I recognize that now, but as a kid, I didn't know how to convey to another man, look, bro, I need help. I know how to say it now, but at that time, I didn't know how to say, these are my struggles. This is what I need to talk about. I developed a shell around me because I felt like if somebody could get to me, they could get to my family. Because again, my father wasn't there. So one thing I want people who watching this video to understand, take time with young men. Mold them. And it's not going to be easy, because when a turtle develops a hard shell, that's what these young guys are doing who either lose their father or never had their father. They're hard on the outside because they don't want you to get to the inside. The inside is fragile. You can see it in their eyes. They really need help, but they don't know how to come out and relate it to other individuals, other males in their life. Look, I'm struggling. I need help. And if you take time with a youth, and if you don't continue to describe with him, call him on a daily basis, he gonna figure, you don't care nothing about me. And I'm telling you this because that's what I went through. Wasn't nobody, for the most part, day in and day out, wasn't nobody calling me, hey bro, how you doing? What's going on with you? How you grades? And things of that nature. Elementary and middle school, I was an honor roll student. I'm going to tell y'all this. Elementary and middle school, I was an honor roll student. When my father passed, my grades dropped tremendously. What's up, Ty? I grew up without my man too. Yes, sir. Yeah, it's rough. Like, my grades dropped tremendously because my focus went from school, because when you ain't got nothing, when I didn't have nothing to do but school, every time from K through the 8th grade, all I did was make honor roll. Wow. But the second semester of my 9th grade year, matter of fact, February the 4th, 1998, my father passed. And I started that week, right after he was buried February the 8th. From February the 8th until I found a job, all I did, I went to school, but my mind wasn't on school. It was finding a job. I need to find a job. I need to find a job, because my mind frame was, I got to get some money to take this load off of my mother. But another thing I want to talk to y'all about is grieving. Bruh, I'm going to be honest. I didn't even cry at my father's funeral. I didn't cry at his wake. I didn't cry at his funeral. I never forget this. It took me, say, about a week, maybe a week and a half. I went to the mall. I grew up in the west side. Y'all call it College Hill Courts. I went downtown. I caught the bus, and I went to the mall. And I remember this like it was yesterday. I got off the bus, walked around. That's the way I clear my head. I'm sharing this with y'all because I'm being transparent. I take walks to clear my head, and I started it then as a young kid. But I went back to get on the bus, and as I went back to get on the bus, this was my first time of really grieving over my father. Now, he had passed and everything. I seen a man holding his son, talking to him. And all I could do was put my hood over my head and just bawl. I'm talking about bawl out. Because I can vividly remember a picture of my father holding me. And that stick with me to this day. One of the reasons why I work with young men is because I know what it's like not to have a father. I know what it's like to have one, but I know what it's like when your father leaves for whatever reason. So that's why I work with young men, and I try to stay adamant and go hard as hard as I possibly can, because I know what it's like for when you want to talk to your father, or you want to get that insight. Hey man, what should I do? I didn't have that. So that's why I try to learn everything I possibly can and be a vessel to others, because one thing people do not realize is once you lose a parent, see, it's different when you lose, like you might lose a cousin or you might lose an aunt. But once you lose a parent, it's totally different, because especially a parent who was in your life day in, day out, taught you stuff. My daddy taught me how to play sports. He taught me how to look for certain women. I'm just be honest. It's certain things he taught me, but I didn't get the full potential because of he died. I mean, it is what it is. And I ain't gonna lie, it affects me to this very day. It do. Like, I still think about another time when I can be transparent. When I graduated high school in 2001. The only thing that I could think about when I graduated high school was, what would my father be doing? My mother was there. I thank God for her. My mother was there. My sister was there. But all I could think of was, what would my father think? One of the things I do wish, and she watching, I see my little sister right now, I wish I can have a better relationship with my sisters, both of them. I got two sisters. I got an older sister, and I got a younger sister. I believe that somewhere down the line, our wires got crossed, because the one connecting factor to all three of us, I don't know whether they know it, but I feel like was my father. Me and my little sister, we got the same mother and father, but me and my older sister, we got the same father. And it's like, once my father left, it seemed like it was a disconnect between me and my sisters. I don't have any brothers, I'm my only son. So, and it's like, I ain't gonna lie, man. When I see my sisters go through something, and I want to talk to them, sometimes I don't feel like I know how. And that's painful. Because not only when I lost my father, me being around, check this out. I had my mother, my two sisters, and basically I was around women. I was around nothing but women, and it's like the way I am, I'm an introvert. When things go on with me, I tend to go bring things in. So I'm dealing with all this from the inside, not knowing that, look, I need to verbally communicate and say, look, this, and this. Mind you, at the time, I'm 14, 15 years old. My little sister, when my father died, let me see, I was 14, so she had to be, what, 8 or 9. So to see her from 8 and 9 to where she at now, I thank God for where she at now, because she's doing a whole lot better than what she was doing when we was younger, and I thank God for that. But I believe a lot of the struggles, and I do, like I told y'all earlier, I blame myself because I didn't reach out to her. And if she is watching, I want to apologize. I love both of my sisters with all my heart. Sometimes I don't necessarily say that, but I love my whole family. But to get further along with what I was dealing with as a man, think about it. You got your sisters, you got your mother, and this is one thing my father told me. My father said his last words to me. The night before my father was in, I'm going to share this with y'all because I feel like this is important. My father went into a coma for like 2 weeks. But before he went into, if I'm remembering right, my father had a stroke and he had a brain aneurysm. That brain aneurysm what basically contributed to his death. But my father, the night before, for some reason, me, him, and my mother, we stayed up and we talked. And basically, this was a school night. We talked all night. And they was reminiscing about old times. This 2017, I remember this 98, I remember it like yesterday. My father told me something. He said, son, if anything ever happened, he told me this night, that night. If anything ever happened to me, take care of your mother and your sister. Me being 15, I still remember it now. And that was something I didn't know how to do. And for the longest, I struggled with that. And to be honest, I didn't even want to be around my sisters because I felt like I let both of them down. Now, one of them older than me, but I still feel like I let both of them down because I was a male. I was the man, or I felt like the man in their life. So just think about all the anger that a kid has who's a male, who doesn't have a father. You just thinking they acting out to be acting out. Like I say, some kids don't think the way I think. Even with the way I thought I struggled. So just think about some things that they struggle with. Because most of the times, it's a lot of, if you don't have I didn't have an older brother. It was just me. I ain't have nobody to look to and say, look, far as except my friends and my cousins, but I was an introvert, so I basically stayed to myself. But another thing I want y'all to understand, men who don't have men in their life on a consistent basis as a teenager, women, please, any women who watching this, listen. They struggle with their early relationships because they don't know how to properly be in one. I'm going to say this. Men who do not have a man, a strong man in their life, when they get in their first couple of relationships, they struggle with them because they do not know how to be in one properly. Mind you, I'm going to share some more stuff with you because I feel like this is important. My father, at one point in his life, people, I got to be real, he was a womanizer, and I seen this with my own eyes. So, when I got of age, I wanted so bad to be like my father that I wanted to implement what he did, whether it was right or wrong. So as I got older, I started to mess with this woman, that woman, this woman, that woman, this woman, that woman, as feeling like this is a badge of honor to my father. No one never set me down and told me, look here, young fella, you don't need to be sleeping with every woman you are attracted to or every woman who will pay you some attention. That's what I did because that's what I had modeled before me. So men, if you have sons, watch what you model before your sons, because even at 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and above, we looking at our father's every move. We looking at how he walk. We looking at how he talk. We looking at how he think. Like anything our father do, we're a sponge. As a kid, we soaking it up. We soaking up things. And I remember soaking up. I'm going over this. Now, my father was married to my mother. But I was going over this woman's house, that woman's house with my father. I even remember my mother getting mad at me because I wouldn't tell my mother where we was at. I should have, but I felt like, hey, that's my mother and that's my father. I didn't want to get in the middle of it. But that's another story for another day. But men, it's so many things that we struggle with when we don't have a father. If you have a father, I pray that your father is spending as much time with you as possible. Another thing, men, if your mother marries a guy or gets with a guy and he's a good man, because one thing we pay attention to, as a kid, you know whether this guy's a good guy or this guy's a bad guy. If someone is with a good, if your mother happen to get with a good man, or you know a woman with a good man, or if you happen to be that man, stick with that son. Like, it's going to be a struggle getting into him because, hey, if you wasn't there from the beginning, it's opposition. Because, hey, he feel like, look, I'm the man when he's really a boy. And you feel like the man say, look, I got to set up residence. One thing that I wish, and I'm going to apologize to my mother next time I talk to her about it, because it's on my heart. I probably ran some good men away from my mother because I wanted to be the man. I didn't even give them an opportunity to come into her life when she was at need of a companion because of my own selfishness. And I can share that with you now. All I was thinking about was my father this, my father that, me. In life, we have to learn that everything we go through is to help others. Now, I went through my father's passing, and I'm sharing it with you all. And I want y'all to share this video so y'all can hear the heart of a man who's dealt with and still dealing with the effects of losing his father at a young age. Now, it might be different for different people, but I feel like it's parts of this video or parts of my testimony that could help somebody else. One thing, like, my father never showed me my father was very handy. He was good with his hands. That's one thing that I didn't pick up on, as far as like working on cars and stuff like that. My father was good at that. But I'm going to tell you, it's interesting. One thing he did show me. When I was younger, me and my father had a job. The church we went to, my father had a job cleaning up a church. My father showed me that everything it is about cleaning. He showed me do this, do that. My father was very particular about cleaning. When we went and cleaned up the church, my father made sure, look, you know how to clean up. And believe it or not, one of the jobs I have in serving right now, one of my jobs I clean up. I mean, I guess God got a sense of humor, but my father showed me also when he was in my life, while he was living, keep a job. That's one thing that my father instilled in me. Keep a job. Pay attention and keep a job. Them two good things I can say that I learned from my father, and they stuck with me. But for those guys who didn't have a father, period, or lost their father at an early age, I can sympathize with those guys because I held a lot of anger for many years. I was depressed. I spent a long time in my life depressed, man, because of me being just mad at God, because I felt like I shouldn't have to go through this. When, to be honest, it was part of God's plan in my life. I recognize that now. For me to go through it, even if it's to help somebody right now say, look, I'm not perfect, I ain't no millionaire, nothing like that. But if I can make it to where I'm at right now, you can make it further if a tragedy happens in your life. The Lord Almighty, once I became saved and once I accepted the Lord, taught me through the example of Christ, Jesus Christ, taught me how to be a man, taught me how to be responsible. I latched on to a guy, no lie. I latched on to a guy in the church, and he showed me one thing. He showed me you could be human, but you can also strive to live holy, meaning strive to live better. You ain't gonna be perfect. Not in the sense of where you're not gonna make a mistake, but you can strive to mature. That's all the word perfect means. And it makes a difference in life when you have somebody who walks with you. When you have somebody who show you, look, I don't have it all together, but I'm gonna walk you through this. If you don't have a kid or a son and you a man, find one young man to pour into. Even if it's just one, you'll make a difference. Find one young man that you will be on him, that you'll call him, check on him, take him places, be in his life, and let him know you care. Now, don't let him get over. Because, hey, I'm telling you, we will try to, I mean, if you're a man, you know how it go, but one thing about kids, I work with kids now. On one of my jobs, I work with kids who don't have, a lot of the kids I work with don't have their fathers in their life. And they will use the fact of not having a parent, and they will use it to get over. Or they'll use it to say, well, I'm dealing with this, I don't have to be responsible. One of the things I try to teach all young men, two things: think and be responsible. Because at the end of the day, you are responsible for your own actions. I don't care what you done dealt with in life. I done dealt with some hardships. I know guys who've dealt with worse than me. But one thing for certain is you have to be, one thing I couldn't do because I lost my father. I couldn't go hurt nobody and couldn't go kill nobody, and the police say, okay, because he lost his father, we're going to be lenient. Another thing I couldn't do, because in life people try to make excuses for people because they went through trauma. Because I lost my father, I couldn't go to school and not do my work and expect to pass. It was still a level of responsibility that I had to do. Because I lost my father, I couldn't say I don't want to work. I still had to learn responsibility to get me a job or create a business to learn how to pay bills. Just because a person goes through trauma, and teach this to young men, or if it's a young lady, just because you're going through something, life does not stop. I'm going to repeat that. Just because you go through heartache and pain, life does not stop. One of the reasons why I never picked up alcohol or drugs, thanks be to God, is because I seen the effects of what happened with my father when he dealt with alcohol and drugs. So I had to look at it and see, look, this ain't for me. Now, somebody else could look at it in a different light, but I seen my father drinking day in and day out, and every day throw up afterwards, after having a hangover. And I made the decision, if I was gonna do something that wasn't like my father, I wasn't gonna drink. When I hear a person throw up right now, and it's crazy, but I think of my father when he was throwing up when I was a kid. And that instills in me right to this day, do not put anything alcoholic in my body. And that's why I'm like, no, I ain't drinking, I ain't smoking, you ain't getting me on that. Because I seen the effects of what it did to him. And at one point in time, I'm going to share this with you because it go along with you. I hated alcohol, period, because I felt like if my father, listen to me, this is me being honest. My father, I felt like if my father had to stop drinking, that once his blood, he had an aneurysm and an aneurysm is a blood vessel, the burst of a blood vessel, and it burst in his head, and it did not stop because of how much he drunk and his eating habits. That's two of the reasons why I try to eat right. I don't eat perfect, just being honest. And I will not drink any alcohol for those two reasons, because I feel like those things contributed to my father's death. And another thing I want to share with y'all is, if you are a parent, whatever you put in your body affects not only you, but it affects your children. I'm telling you, as a man who lost his father, and at one point in time I felt like the alcohol was the reason I lost my father. So if you struggle with an addiction, think about this. Is the addiction more important than your child? Or if you married? If you married, look at it like this. If you married and ain't got no kids, or if you want to be married, or if you want children, is any addiction stronger than your family? Because it's not just about you. And an addiction is just the way you cope with something. Whether it's a sexual addiction, whether it's a drug addiction, it's just a coping thing. And you got to recognize, is it more important than your family, or is it more important than you? Because all addictions are damaging to your body. And I'm going to be honest, man, it's like I held a lot of resentment. I had to give it to the Lord. And it took me a while, man, I'm going to be honest. I didn't go around certain family members. And it's even today, my wife, she'll tell you, if you ever meet my wife, I hate cigarette smoke. This is just another confession, because I'm going to be real. I have to make myself go around family members who smoke cigarettes. I hate it. I mean, that's something I hate. I'm just being. It's all about honesty. I have to get past that because I've used my stubbornness that kept me away from my family members, and I'm just being real. They ain't no worse off than I am. They just have something that they dealing with, and I have to love them past that. So this is also me being real and giving y'all my struggles at the same time. Because people, if you want to learn from somebody and you want people to learn from you, you have to be totally transparent. That's another thing we have in society that we do not do. We do not be transparent with each other. If you having a struggle, go to it. If you having something that you dealing with a person, and I learned this after I got older and more mature. Like I told you, I hate cigarette smoke. It's been times my wife has to convince me to go over family members' houses because they smoke. I hate it. I'm just being honest. One of the reasons why I'm a homebody is because I know in my house ain't gonna be no cigarette smoke. And I have to get past that because I can't not be around my family members and give them what little insight I have. I don't have much. I don't think I have much. But whatever I learn, I feel like it's for me to share with others. And one of the biggest things I learned, and I'm sharing with y'all right now, is transparency. That means be totally open with other people. Like I say, me dealing with my father's death caused me a lot of pain. When you see a young man who's acting out, acting foolish, or doing this, doing that, understand his struggles. Also hold him accountable, but understand his struggles. Walk with him through his struggles. That's one of the reasons why I made this video, because I want people to understand that we have to walk with our young men through their struggles. Don't leave them by the wayside because he's acting a certain way. He's acting a certain way because of something he's been through. I'm going to say that again. All people don't think the same. He's acting a certain way because of something he's been through. It's a lot on these young men that they have on their shoulders. It's a lot on these young brothers. And if you don't walk with these young brothers in a way where you ain't do not try to get nothing out of the deal besides helping them. That's another thing. If young people recognize if you fake, I'm going to say this. If you ain't walking with these young brothers and you ain't being truthful with them, they can see right through it. That's why they might come around you one moment and they don't want to come around you again. If you are walking with these young men and you sharing with them and you showing them your flaws as well as helping them through theirs, they will see that you real. One of the reasons why we're not getting more accomplished in our city and in our community is because we don't want to walk with these young men and women and show them, hey, we have flaws too. Because I say I love the Lord don't mean I don't have struggles. I do. And my struggles are meant for me to get through them to help others. Because somebody struggled with it before me. Somebody's going to struggle with it after me. Any struggle you have in life, once you overcome it, is to help somebody else overcome it. That's one of the reasons why in the scriptures, and I'm talking about the Bible, that's one of the reasons why the Bible says to live is Christ and to die is gain, meaning to live, every experience you have on this earth is sacrificial for someone else. It's not just for you. Everything you go through, if I see a young guy's death, that death impacts me because it's a such thing in Ecclesiastes, it's talking about a guy dying, a man or a woman dying before their time. If we don't mature, if we just act foolishly, you can die before your time. If you act too wise or too foolish, that's what Ecclesiastes say, you could die before your time. And I have to touch on that because I want y'all to understand one thing. Also, we're not going to stop all the violence. That's just being real. People can get mad at me for saying it. But based on we living in a fallen world, we're not going to stop all the violence. That's just a fact. But you can, to really stop some of it, to really walk with these young men, you have to be transparent with them. To walk with these young people, you got to be transparent with them. They dealing with real life struggles, like you dealing with real life struggles. Some of them have addictions with sex. Some of them, I deal with guys who have addictions smoking cigarettes, and I talk with them. I have guys that I work with who have addictions with even homosexuality. And we have to walk with them. Don't condemn them. You don't have to agree with the act, but don't condemn them. We have to walk with these individuals who have these struggles because the best, your expertise is only out of a struggle that you endured. Look at anybody you know who came through a struggle. Once you come through a struggle, it's meant for you to help this other person. It's not just for you. The process is, hey, I hear this all the time, trust the process. After you get through the process, now you got to share your experience. They say experience is the best teacher, but if I experience it, I should be able to teach you so you don't have to experience it. And I got to give you all of my experience for you not to experience it. I'm going to say that again. If I just give you half of my experience and not all of it, then you will experience it because you don't understand the full effect that it had on me. That's why I'm going so hard on this video, because I want y'all to understand experience is the best teacher, but let my experience show you. Don't go through it. If somebody have 5 or 6, if you got 3 or 4 babies and you can't take care of them, share with a young kid, look, I'm struggling with taking care of these kids because I made poor decisions. Share with other people. Share with your kids, this ain't the life I want you to live. I'm struggling. Share with them because you want better for them. Let your full experience teach them. But once, if you give them half of the experience you telling them It's like you lying to them about who you are. You ain't giving them your all. If you're gonna give a person your all, give them your experiences, show them your flaws, help them, show them your strengths, and as well as showing them your weaknesses. Our weaknesses is what help us to make others strong. I've learned so much from somebody by showing me by being totally transparent with me. If a person is not totally transparent with you, then they're going to lie to you. I'm going to say that again. If a person is not totally transparent with you, they're going to lie to you. I said that to say this. I said this earlier. If you're not totally real with these kids, they ain't going to gravitate towards you. The reason they gravitating toward these gangbangers, guess what the gangbangers tell them? They being more real than you are. If you trying to be righteous and you not telling them the truth, the gangbanger gonna tell them, look, bruh, it's real out here. They gonna give them they gonna be more It's sad that gang members are more transparent than folks who try to live righteous. And I'm gonna be honest. You hear people on songs and you hear people through conversation always talk about how the hypocrites come out of the church. One of the reasons why I go so hard for the Lord is to show people, look, I don't have it all together, but I can still serve the Lord. Yes, I have struggles. Just because I have a struggle don't mean that I'm going to say, look, I got it all together. I'm better than you. That's the reason people think that everybody, for the most part, who serve Yahshua, Jesus the Christ, are hypocrites because we don't want to be transparent and be totally open. Christ was totally open with his disciples. Look, man, I'm telling you, I went through a lot, and I said I was going to get personal, and I had to get personal because I want people. If it's just one person, I don't do this for no likes or nothing like that. I want it to be shared so the message can get out there. But if it's one person can learn from my struggles, then I didn't struggle for no reason. If one person learns from my struggles, then I didn't struggle for no reason. Me learning from my father's mistakes, he didn't make a mistake for no reason. He did it so I wouldn't have to do it, and I seen it. Once you live with a person, once you walk with a person, think about this in dating. I'm going to use this as an analogy. You can have, if you dating somebody or if you just seeing them, you can hold your flaws back to a certain degree. But once you reveal your whole self, then they might be like, I can't deal with it. Reveal your whole self when you trying to minister to somebody. It say, go therefore and make disciples. When you make a disciple, be real. Don't lie, be real. Just like I say, I struggle and I don't like cigarette smoke. I don't like it. I don't like alcohol. This is me. But that don't mean I don't like people who smoke. It's I don't like that, so I have to get over that. It's hard for me. I'm just being honest. Certain people have things that's hard for them. Those are things that's hard for me. No, I ain't perfect. I ain't. I got struggles. I went through I'm going to be honest. I never had the one-on-one talk. This is another thing I didn't have with my father. My father might have said, ooh, this girl this is how you talk to a girl, but he never had the birds and the bees talk. I never had the talk of when you having a sexual feeling, you deal with it in a proper manner like this. I never had that. You'd be surprised how many young men have never had that talk with their father or any man to that degree to where they never been taught how to properly deal with a woman. Not most men don't even know how to deal with a woman's emotions. If you done learn how to deal with a woman's emotions, and you got a young man, one day he's gonna date, teach him, look, this is the way it works. It's not just for you to go through it. Again, you go through things to teach others. I hope I was totally transparent enough for somebody to learn. Look, I had major struggles in my life because of my father passing. But I didn't let that get the best of me. I had to learn some things the hard way, true indeed. But that didn't neglect me from being responsible enough to do it, to learn. Just because we deal with trauma doesn't give us no excuse not to be better. I looked at my situation, this is me. I looked at my situation as I have to be better. Some folks waddle in their trauma. Some folks have to be nurtured. Some folks have to be picked up in their trauma. And when I mean their trauma, it's their hard place. Some folks, they need a pick-me-up. We all need a pick-me-up to some degree, but some people need a pick-me-up just to know that they got to keep going. I'm going to say that again. Some people need a pick-me-up just to know that they got to keep going. Not that you going to do it for them, but a pick-me-up to know that they got to keep doing it. As long as you keep living life, show people, look, if you make a mistake, and if you learn from it, show somebody else, look, this is what I went through. Show the person closest to you, because we're not transparent in that area. I feel like that's one of the downfalls of mankind. Oh, I learned from it, but I ain't going to share it with nobody else. And that's sad. I hope I share insight. I got a few guests coming in the future. And I might have a guest tomorrow. I can't confirm it yet. That could give more in-depth of his story about this same topic. But we'll wait and see. If it's the Lord's will, we'll get into that. And one thing about life, don't be so set on your own plans. Because when I woke up this morning, I didn't know that I was going to get this personal with y'all. I thought I was going to be talking about something totally different. But the Lord put it on my heart, and I couldn't shake it, that I need to talk about my struggles as a man who faced life, not just in the inner city, but faced life without his father. Because it's very important that I share this, because there's a lot of young men that I know, or young women, that lost their fathers or never had fathers, who's dealing with resentment, dealing with anger, and they don't know how to channel it. So hey, help them out. If I mentor young guys, I will do the best I can to assist them. But I'm going to be real with them. I ain't going to sugarcoat it, because your life is so important that the truth, the Bible says Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life, and those who are in him are free indeed. So you got to be 100% truthful. I thank y'all for tuning in to the video. Please like it. Well, you ain't even got to like it. Please share it so people can get the message and gain insight. If it could just be one thing that I said that somebody could learn from, share it so they can get it. I thank y'all for tuning in. This was my spiel, me pouring my heart out for a lot of things that I went through in my life. And believe it or not, I feel refreshed because I got some things off my chest that I really needed to get off and somebody else could learn from. So try it sometime and help somebody. This is the Deprogram Show. I'm your host, RMJR. Also, my name, I like to get personal, Roland McClendon Jr., that's me. I ain't trying to be nobody that I ain't. Like I say, share this so somebody can learn from it. Peace. Thank y'all for tuning in.